All right, on this episode of Bowks Talking Bouts, excited to be talking to an individual set to compete at BKFC 34, which transpires on December the 3rd, challenging for the lightweight championship against Luis Palomino. Happy to be welcoming Tom Shoaff onto the show once again. How are you feeling heading into such a big fight, man? I would think you're pretty elated.
I feel pretty fantastic. I've been planning for this moment for some time, and I've been training for it. I've been directing my life around it, and it's finally here. So it's a pretty fantastic feeling. I'm in my last little final stretch before the finish line, and I'm excited.
Yeah, and I'd seen like an August Instagram post you had where you were kind of making a joke, you're saying like a visual reenactment of me waiting on, BKFC to put me back to work. Like, when did the bout offer initially kind of come your way if you were like posting that just 9 some odd weeks ago?
So we had been going back and forth in negotiations on a fight since July. And I had a date in September. I had a couple of dates in September, a couple of dates in October, a date in November. We went back and forth a lot. But we were finally able to get things finished and squared away just a few weeks ago. And, they made the announcement, and I'm back to work.
Yeah, I would think that would be maybe a little stymieing, especially after like the April victory over Bruce Lutch-Medial and the comprehensive nature of that performance. I would have thought rather you'd want to get out there and kind of keep the momentum going as soon as you could.
Well, yeah, so there was a couple of things behind that. I would have loved to kept the momentum going and stayed active. For sure. However, I had a game plan, so to speak, and I had a goal, and I was under the impression that after 3 fights that I had won in good fashion, that I would be in line for a title shot. So I was really holding out for that. That's what I wanted. That was where my timeline was, so to speak, for my career. And so I was really holding out for that. It would have been nice to stay active, but like I said, I had a goal and I had a plan, and it took a little longer than expected, but we're here.
Yeah, and I think it's like a cool title shot opportunity because like I do the BKFC rankings, and obviously it's like an amalgamated sort of thing, but for some reason, like curiously, you're absent from a lot of the rankings. But I think people who've like really followed the sport for a long time realize you're a ranked, talented guy up there in the division, 3-fight winning streak. Like, was there ever a time where you thought this wouldn't manifest, this title shot? Because I feel like a lot of like the real, I guess, hardcore bare knuckle fans were quite elated at you getting the distinction just because it aligned with the merit of what you've been doing.
Yeah, to touch on the rankings and whatnot, I'm not entirely sure why I tend to fall between the cracks on a lot of those, but I'm pretty sure that I tie Julian Lane with the most performance bonuses of any fighter. I'm pretty sure I'm the only fighter to get Fight of the Year twice. So like those things are impressive. Beside the fact that I lost them. But I think that also a lot of the issue comes from those losses. I was taking fights in higher weight classes, and even at 155 pounds, I'm 3-0, soon to be 4-0, and my record still wouldn't show that I am as talented as like you said, the true fans would know. So I'm excited to be able to go out and put that on display. And give all of the fans, regardless of how long they've been watching the sport, an opportunity to see me work. I love what I do, and I feel like I'm pretty good at it, and I'm only getting better. So this is going to be it's a huge opportunity for me, and I'm glad it's happening when it's happening.
Yeah, it's a very, high level fight, even beyond the 155-pound division. Like, obviously, fighting the champion and the divisional implications are obvious there, but also a guy that's the number one pound for pound in all of BKFC now. So, yeah, definitely one of like the bigger kind of, opponents you can have yourself aligned with, and something that could, give you some cachet, more so bolster the stock, etc.
Yeah, I think that is I think one, it's probably the biggest and most important thing that I need to recognize going into this fight is that it's not just any fight. This guy is recognized by the majority of the community as pound for pound number one. So that is thrilling for me. It is exciting for me, but it is also something that I need to take very seriously. And I would also like to touch back on kind of what we were talking about earlier, and having the time off and the consistent back and forth with the contracts. It really worked out to my benefit because I had started training so long ago, because I wanted to be ready for, a September card, and then that didn't happen, and then, just progressively kept getting pushed back. So I was progressively training and getting better, because I knew that I was going to have to be better. When you're in a situation where you're going to fight the guy who's the best in the world, you better come with your A game. And if you don't, you are sorely, sorely mistaken to think it's going to go your way.
Yeah, for sure. And then when you kind of began that winning streak there, I was seeing some of the, comments from you where you were saying, oh, I'm not really necessarily expecting to jump right into a title fight with Palomino. It seemed more oriented to like kind of a merit thing, like working your way towards it. Was there also a technique-minded consideration with all of that? Like, I guess what I'm saying is, like, what are the biggest differences from when you began the win streak in this weight category versus where you're at now heading into the title fight?
Well, I feel like I am better than my record shows, and my record is the way that it is because I was taking fights in weight classes that I shouldn't have been fighting in. I also felt like just because that's how I feel doesn't mean that that's the truth of the scenario. So if I was going to say that I'm good enough to fight for the belt, then I need to be good enough on paper to fight for the belt, because just because I say I'm good doesn't mean anything. So there was absolutely a game plan and a goal to build myself up at 155 pounds to prove that I belong there, that I'm devastating there, and that I'm just as talented as I've always said that I was. I was just in the wrong weight class. And now that I'm in the right weight class, I'm given my opportunity to prove to everybody that I belong in the top echelon of the sport.
Yeah, and as far as like where you're getting in that work, it seems like the linear kind of gym or spaces, I suppose, would be like, Ricardo, Cavalcanti, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Alpha, MMA in Lawton, Oklahoma. Is that where you've been getting in that work, like some more good work with Coach Andy Pierce and all?
So I own that gym here in Lawton. I'm partners with a good buddy of mine here, and so this is just where I do a lot of my personal training out of. But I travel up to Oklahoma City a lot to work with Coach P and to work with a handful of other gyms in the community. I'm trying to get in touch with some people down in Texas, but I try to move around and be as active as possible with my sparring and with my sparring partners, because fights are always unknown. You never know what you're going to get yourself into. So I can always try to find people who are going to mimic the size of Luis, but I never know what he's going to bring to the table, so I'm always looking for different sparring partners, things like that. As far as my own personal training goes with my coach, that all takes place up in Oklahoma City, and then I do all of my own strength and conditioning and bag work and cardio and everything else, either here at my gym or around town. I like to run the mountain out here, and I like to do a lot of we got some cool parks out here, so I run around the parks and things like that. But a lot of my training is, with the exception of the mitt work I get with my coach, it's self-done.
Yeah, and kind of briefly, going from different martial arts disciplines here, I just wanted to address the recent, BJJ black belt upgrade there. You finally got to go through the gauntlet and everything like that. Can you talk about that whole experience?
Oh yeah, so that was a wild experience. I was expecting a typical Monday where I was coming in and doing, a small promotion for a very limited group of people who've been working real hard over the last couple of weeks, couple of months, and that was it. And next thing I know, I'm getting my black belt, and it was a speechless type of experience, I guess is the best way that I could describe it. It took me a while to find my words to actually be able to talk for the speech that they wanted me to give. But it was cool. It was in a culmination of 15 years of activity. I've been doing this sport for a long time. I've been in this combat sports community for the majority, or the entirety of my adult life. I started training, when I turned 18. So it was cool to finally reach that point. But it was also very humbling because I know how much I don't know. So for me to have that now, it's, I just got to continue to grow and get better and move forward. But the gauntlet was no joke. I made it through my entire jiu-jitsu career, I'm pretty sure, without ever having to go through a gauntlet. I don't ever remember going through one previously. And I was always pretty rough to the people who I had put through the gauntlet, because I was under the impression that I wasn't going to have to go through it. And I was wrong. And they got their revenge. And, once again, it was a humbling experience.
Yeah, it seems like very important into like what you're, currently doing, as much as you're, operating at a very high level in bare knuckle boxing, like the last martial arts competition being, like submission grappling oriented. So clearly still something you're very, passionate about and actively competing in. So yeah, when I saw you got the BJJ black belt, I was happy by proxy. I was like, oh, that must be huge.
Well, thank you very much, man. And yeah, it's very much a part of my life, and very much something that I enjoy doing. Like I said, it's something that unfortunately has not been something that I've been able to compete in as frequently. But life kind of takes you places, and that's where my journey is as far as jiu-jitsu goes. And I've got other journeys in front of me.
Yeah, and to that point, wanted to, redirect it to, talking about this upcoming Palomino fight. And I thought it was interesting because I had seen like a relatively recent interview you were doing, like a podcast where you were kind of talking about the fight, and you were seeming to indicate you saw some pretty clear, obvious holes, like on a tactical level, as far as like what Luis Palomino is bringing to the table. And it seemed like your calculated pressure and like doggedness were like some of the bigger variables you saw in your favor. Is that kind of like a fair breakdown of how you're looking at this upcoming fight?
Yeah, I think that Luis is incredibly athletic, especially for his age. I think that he moves very well, and he utilizes that movement and that athleticism to his advantage. I also feel like he has no issues getting into we'll call it a dogfight, but only when he feels like he's the bigger person. And one of the beautiful things about me is not only am I the bigger, longer person, but I consistently embrace the dogfight, and I have no issue tracing you down and tracking you down. I much prefer to move forward when I fight than backward. Not to say that I can't fight backward, but I much prefer to move forward. So I think stylistically, I am a nightmare for him. I think my length, my footwork, my constant pressure, and my punch output is just going to be too much for him. And he's just going to have to prove me wrong. I mean, that's the only way that I can come off of that. I've watched his fights, I've watched his footage, and he's an incredibly talented guy. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. People wouldn't call him the pound-for-pound #1 if that wasn't the case. But I'm pretty sure that I can beat him.
And I would think this is a guy that you're quite, aware of in a lot of regards, like on a tape study level. I mean, before your Bruce Bletch-Medial fight, it seemed like a very studious breakdown of everything he did with like specific examples cited from each fight. So, I mean, with a guy like this, who's one of the more active kind of guys and has one of the deeper records in BKFC, I would think that kind of dynamic is existing like tenfold almost.
Yeah, Luis has been on my radar ever since I decided to make my move down to the 155-pound division. A lot of people forget that there was a 155-pound tournament for the title that got scratched just after the A side started because of COVID. And that was where Luis Palomino and Jim Allers had both fought for their position in the tournament. They scratched the B side of that tournament and allowed those two to just fight for the title. I was in that tournament. I was on the B side of that tournament, ready to compete on the next card, and then COVID happened. So Luis Palomino has been on my radar since 2020, late 2019. So yeah, I've had plenty of time to watch his footage and see what's been going on with him, and follow his progression. And I'm excited to finally to get in there and prove my worth. Like I said, I feel like I can beat this guy. I know I can beat this guy, and I'm ready to show everybody that I can beat this guy.
Yeah, and I think both of you fit in that description of like some of the more tenured fighters in the company. Like even when we initially spoke ahead of BKFC 6, like you'd already pretty well established yourself in the circuit. Like you already had that like pair of Diego Garijo kind of fights. So I mean, you're a guy as well who has one of the, I guess, deeper kind of records in the company as well. So one would maybe infer that there's going to be like some very high level, fight IQ at play in this one, just the experience you both have.
Yeah, I think that's an absolutely fair thing to say. We are both bringing a lot of experience to the table. He obviously has more championship level experience, and that's all fine and dandy. But a fight is a fight, and we'll see that when we get in there, and hopefully that's what we will actually see. I've been seeing a lot of footage, and he's been tagging me in a lot of videos on Instagram of him just, kind of at the track running around. And, that's all fine and dandy. Everybody needs, to get their conditioning and stuff like that in. But if you're just coming to dance around, you're going to disappoint a lot of people. It is no shock to anybody who's ever seen me fight that running is a rarity for what I do. Yeah. And him being champion, I think if he makes me chase him around, that's going to be a pretty despicable thing.
Yeah, so many intriguing variables in this upcoming fight and everything. But one last thing I wanted to touch on there, because I thought it was a cool photo op you had recently with old Mike Goldberg there at BYB London. Can you kind of talk about that backstory there and like what was going on there? Do you have some teammates competing at that BYB London event?
Yeah, so that was such a cool, just a wild experience. But so my buddy Brandon Johnson, he's fought bare knuckle a handful of times. He's fought for BYB. He's fought for BKFC. He's fought for the bare knuckle MMA league that Gamebred did. Gamebred FC, I think it was. Yeah. He's been around the bare knuckle game quite a bit. Well, he got invited to go fight out at the BYB versus BKB card. Wound up going through two opponents and ended up fighting an American. But, he, got invited to go out there, so we went out to London, and, we were there for a week, and we were in this, little micro hotel that only had about 40 rooms, and it was just full of fighters and, people who are on the marketing team and the media and the cast and crew behind the scenes, as far as Facebook and Instagram and the production and all that good stuff. So it was just a really cool week of sitting down, sharing war stories, so to speak, from old fight experiences, and to be able to sit down with a guy like Mike Goldberg, who's been there since the beginning, and has been with all of the best organizations in the world, and known all of the best fighters in the world, to just sit down and have conversations with him, and then to find out that he's good friends with my good buddy Leonard Garcia. It was just cool. It's one of those small worlds, tight community type of scenarios over in London, of all places. And I went out there because I was cornering a friend of mine. My buddy asked me if I could go out there and corner him and help him out. And I couldn't pass up the opportunity, so I went. And it was a cool time.
Yeah, do you find like cornering people offers you a different perspective that I guess has some sort of residual benefit for what you're doing as a competitor, or are they just altogether kind of different things and there's no, I guess, overlap in that kind of learning curve, I guess?
No, I actually, believe it or not, started fighting because my end game has always been coaching. I've always wanted to be a coach. I've always wanted to pass knowledge and information on and help people better their lives, in a sense. For whatever reason, that was something that kind of hit me really hard when I was young, and that was why I started fighting, because I knew that I was going to need a career to back my coaching, something to prove that I had been there and I had done that, so I could coach you through that. So to be able to coach high level fights and to be with high level fighters and be in the corner and be in the workings is just, not only is it helping prepare me for things that I intend on doing in the future, but it also helps me as a fighter, because I see things from a different perspective and from a different angle. And sometimes as a fighter, just to give you a quick example, when you're in there, when you're actually in the ring and you've got one perspective, your first person perspective, you don't necessarily see shots that are available or believe that shots are available. But being on the outside and telling somebody, hey, like, this is there, even if you're not seeing it, just throw it and see what happens. And having somebody do that and then understanding, oh, okay, wow, like there are things happening that I'm not seeing, and I'm standing right here. It makes a big difference when I'm being coached and my coach is telling me, hey, like, you got to throw this, or you really got to work on this, or, when you're in there, just because you don't feel like this is available to there, throw it. It allows me to have more faith in that, even though I'm not seeing it. He sees it, and I know that because I've been in those shoes at one point or another. Yeah, coaching absolutely makes a difference when it comes to fighting, and I think it's pretty vital when it comes to coaching. I'm not entirely sure how you can guide somebody down a road you've never walked yourself. I think it's pretty crucial.
Yeah, very well articulated, and I appreciate the depth of insight for sure, man. One of the reasons I always enjoy having you on the show and talking to you for sure. But I also want to be mindful of your schedule and everything for the rest of the day, man. So to that point, is there anything you might want to add as a parting thought as we're wrapping up here?
It's just it's great to talk, and it's great to have people who are interested in what it is that I'm doing and what it is that we're all trying to accomplish here as combat sports community members. And I just want to say thanks for having me on, and thanks to everybody who's listening. And I'll see you all on December 3rd when I win that championship.
It's the headline attraction of BKFC 34, and yeah, going to be an incredible fight there with Luis Palomino, and very much appreciate you coming on the show and giving insights ahead of such a consequential fight. So yeah, you enjoy the rest of your day, man. Appreciate you coming on to reiterate, and just, yeah, looking forward to peeping the fight when it goes down.
Thank you very much, Dylan. You have a great day, man.